Hi folks, we're back cutting through the matrix and talking about really how groups, even in the late 1800s, thought about taking over the world. Eugenics was at a peak at that time, openly. And the idea was that the perfect should rule the imperfect. So those with money, wealth, a bit of good looks, etc., should rule over the rest of them. Very blatant about it too. And of course the big guys who were sent into the U.S. to become exceptionally wealthy to run the U.S., by that I mean people like Rockefeller family, they certainly had acquired lots of cash by that time, and they were given the task really of helping to implement a lot of the agendas that came along with the League of Nations and then the United Nations, where again the fit should rule the unfit. They should start culling off the unfit and make a perfect utopia for themselves, based on Darwin's various theories, and also to do with, again, lots of racism, and the fact that they mentioned that even early on the industrial era would eventually come to an end. And what are they going to do with all these useless eaters? That's their words for it, for us actually. And how they'd manage the public during the takedown. It had to be done by stealth and by good sounding goals, for instance, like sustainability, things like that. In other words, population reduction. The public were always to be given the positive terms for it, not the negative terms for it. And they've been awfully good at that. And this article here too, and all these articles I'll put up the links for at cuttingthroughthematrix.com at the end of this broadcast. The Quiet Coup, the implementation of Agenda 21. It says people have noticed that the 25 government agencies in Obama's new White House Rural Council, and they're questioning what might be the need for all of them. What people may not have noticed yet is that the government agencies in this council are also on other councils, and that's very important. It's called the circles. That's what they call them at the CFR. Some circles overlap, and the ones that overlap are the higher members. They know the higher agenda. These councils, as well as the individual government agencies, are implementing international laws that have taken effect through executive orders. That's orders that don't have to go through Congress. Memorandums of understanding, agreements, and regulations that most Americans don't even know about. These have bypassed Congress, and also seems they have completely bypassed the Constitution. Well, they don't care about the Constitution. Even Bush said that, that piece of old paper, he says. These agencies and councils are forming partnerships, and that's the term. You remember what that term means, with members and groups other than the American people. However, our tax dollars pay for their salaries and for their programs. I mentioned about the border of Canada and the US, and how they're merging them together through agreements through the different mayors associations. So some partnerships sound innocuous, but as you might guess, the devil is in the details. Here's an example. There's a bioeco working group called bioeco.gov, which at first glance seems to be part of the Department of Interior's U.S. Geological Survey, since it's listed as creating the website. But the actual charter has National Science and Technology Council in the heading. The National Science and Technology Council includes 20 of the same agencies that are on the new Rural Council. This is for the rural cleansing agenda, get you off the land. But with some additional agencies, including the CIA. Isn't that interesting? The CIA is now on this too. It also includes the Vice President, Cabinet Secretaries, heads of agencies, and some White House officials. Participating agencies in the Bioeco Working Group are the Departments of Agriculture, Defense, Energy, State, the EPA, NASA, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, Department of the Interior, U.S. Geological Survey, Department of the Interior, Department of Health and Human Services, National Institutes of Health, National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration, National Science Foundation, and the Smithsonian Institution. It seems Bioeco also wanted to solicit the membership of the National Archives and Records Administration and USAID. In the appendix of the charter signed in 2008 by Anna Bartuska of the U.S. Forest Service under the U.S. Department of Agriculture, Susan Hazeltine of the U.S. Geological Survey under the U.S. Department of the Interior, its stated activities of this work group are two. Here it gets to it. Provide a focal point for coordinating U.S. biodiversity and ecosystem informatics activities with international efforts, that's UN, and organizations in this and related areas, such as the Global Biodiversity Information Facility, the Global Earth Observation System of Systems, the Consortium of the Barcode of Life, CBOL, and the Encyclopedia of Life, the EOL, to ensure compatibility of standards and approaches, facilitate sharing of technologies, and provide for equity, reciprocity in data access and exchange. You might think this is nice, we're sharing information with everybody. Then you notice that these organizations seem to map land and catalogue biological resources. And that all came out of the Earth Charter, and part 2 or 3 of the Earth Charter is to come out next year, remember. And it's going to be a lot worse. You might think this is nice. It says, on the website of the Global Biodiversity Information Facility, which is an international organization with many partners, the GBIF's Memorandum of Understanding with its participants, paragraph 3, states objectives. The purpose of GBIF is to promote, coordinate, design, and implement the compilation, linking, standardization of all laws, digitalization and global dissemination of the world's biodiversity data within an appropriate framework for property rights and due attribution. There's your key there, framework for property rights and due attribution. That's what cooperation and coordination. Their participants attend to encourage cooperation amongst themselves in the implementation of GBIF and in development of joint work programs in areas of mutual interest with the Secretariat of the Convention on Biological Diversity and other appropriate bodies and initiatives. So it's quite a long article, but it's got the Convention on Biological Diversity in here and all the other stuff that came out of these private organizations like the Earth Charter boys at the United Nations. And it's going to get folk off the rural lands, you see, because they don't want you living there anymore. You have to go live in the crowded cities up until the year 2050, when magically most of you just either die off or disappear somehow. They never quite stated how that's going to happen, but that was a projection from the Department of Defense's own think tank. They were just going to disappear somehow. The method has not been given to us yet. I mentioned during the week, I have a link I'll put up again tonight, and it's about basically the ICLEI, International Council of Local Environmental Initiatives, which is an international organization. And this is from, I think, the Mercury in Pennsylvania, 24th of March 2011. It's good that people are understanding the sustainability, and carbon taxes are coming to your local county even. And that's the same across the whole world, especially Britain as you go into communitarianism. You can't build without permission, etc. And you aren't asking permission just from your planning departments. Your planning departments are being overseen by these private organizations that sound awfully official, but actually very private organizations to do with sustainability. And they always generally give you the no. You know, you can't build there, you can't do this, you can't do that. And it's going to cost you too. Way more if you're allowed to build than it would ever do it naturally. Anyway, the Mercury March the 8th reported that Montgomery County, Pennsylvania will be letting its membership in the ICLEI, International Council of Local Environmental Initiatives, lapse due to consistent or constituent pressure and dislike for the ICLEI's message, Agenda 21. That's the thing that came up with Maurice Strong's, again, private organization that drafted up the Earth Charter. So a private organization drafted up the Earth Charter, which is going to be renewed and updated next year, by the way, and affect everyone across the whole planet. Again, this private organization that Rockefeller really is the boss of. At least that's one of the ones under his umbrella. Montgomery County Commissioners learned what was meant at a recent meeting held in the county seat Norristown, when local residents Maggie Rodden and Montgomery County Commissioners and Ruth Miller charged the county commissioners with being in league with the United Nations to promote that organization's global warming agenda. Montgomery and surrounding counties, including neighboring Philadelphia County, joined in 2007 for, like many other communities, the purpose of buying software to calculate the county's carbon footprint. So that each county has to buy this ICLEI's program that's supposed to estimate your carbon footprint, and then you're going to pay taxes on that to the United Nations. ICLEI's mission is to help local governments achieve global sustainability according to the organization's charter. Edmond, Oklahoma, joined for the same reason, but the city recently rejected its membership, partly because local residents learned that a city's agreements to that same charter places the city under the jurisdiction of the ICLEI. And as I say, it's non-democratic. There's nothing about the United Nations umbrella organizations that's democratic. You don't vote them in. Do you understand? and therefore they can do what they want once you make them an official body over you, or accept it even. At the Norristown meeting, Commissioner Joseph Hoffel, amused at Rodden and Miller's allegations, said, "The only thing I laugh at is its absurd allegations that the country has a treaty with the United Nations or a treaty with a foreign government. They're utter liars, you see." And Mr. Joseph Hoffel is a complete liar, because if you go into the ICLEI's own website, and I'll put that up, it gives you the link to their history, and they were founded in the United Nations. So the guy knows it perfectly well, but that's nothing new. These guys have to lie because they've nothing else to fall back on. It's true what you're saying. They must lie. This is across the country in Edmond, a grassroots effort to govern Edmond locally, as it was called. This organization, Govern Edmond Locally, GEL, came up against the same denials from its city officials. GEL found it quite easy to connect ICLEI membership with the United Nations and has issued a 3-click challenge. The link is on here, by the way, available on its website, to warn residents of the United Nations connection. Residents of other cities already embroiled with Agenda 21 or in those communities considering it find it easy to understand the challenge and a useful tool in combating the misinformation circulating about sustainability by making the connection in 3 mouse clicks. In spite of Commissioner Hoffel's claims of no UN affiliation, his nose is awful long, by the way, the website of Montgomery Council, which receives $6.2 million in stimulus funds, reveals that the green print plan found on the county's website, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, that's Pachori at the United Nations, that the bunch of mobsters there, formed by the United Nations in 1988 to study global climate change, provides broad evidence that global climate change is a reality. This is what they say in their own website. And that human activity, see, it's your fault, you see, appears to be altering the climate by increasing atmospheric levels of greenhouse gases. So they were on board with this ICLEI, back in the 90s, because we're going to make that basically the buzzword, sustainability and carbon taxes, and it's your fault. Sustainability sounds warm and fuzzy, but when residents find that their cities are signing on to a United Nations scheme, they are successfully fighting back. Miller told commissioners, "I'm here today to be the voice of residents of Montgomery County, who I am certain are unaware that their county government has signed a treaty with the United Nations to reach global sustainability goals." That also means population reductions, folks. You better understand that. Mercury noted that Rodden and Miller have spoken out at past meetings about the United Nations agenda to slowly erode property rights. Absolutely no private property is part of their charter. Miller continued, "United Nations is creating a global governance framework right under our noses, and you, as county commissioners, are in a position to stop it." According to local activist Mark Affleck, Maggie Rodden has a radio show and has been instrumental, if not responsible, for getting the word out about the dangers of ICLEI and Agenda 21. Her work, along with Ruth Miller's, demonstrate what can happen if a few people get involved. There's more to do, but these two have been pretty much alone in battling Agenda 21 in this area. County Policy Chief Steve Nelson said Wednesday that the membership had expired. The New American has been leading the way in educating readers about Agenda 21 and sustainability. And they mention F. Jasper authoring Your Hometown and the United Nations Agenda 21 last month about the dangers posed to local communities. Understanding of this issue is important to defending your city, and prompted Tom DeWeese, American Policy Center, to pen an article about effective opposition called How to Fight Back Against Sustainable Development. And the links are on this link, or this page that I'll put up tonight, and you can look it up for yourselves. And you should get involved, because they mean business, these private organizations, and you really are going to pay through the nose for every part of their agenda, right down to them eventually telling you if you can even get married or can you have a child, and all of that. They really love China's policies, by the way, because it's the same group running it. And yeah, China is run by these outside organizations, if you didn't know that. And then I'm also putting up tonight a link to the British government's same thing. The says here, government unveils sustainable development presumption. It's called. The government has published its proposed wording for the new presumption in favour of sustainable development, run by the same group, by the way, ICLEI, in Britain. Elsewhere, it's international. The presumption will be central to both the national planning policy framework and the government's planning reforms. At this juncture, ministers are not consulting on the text. That stage will come when the draft, called NPPF, is published next month. Communities and Local Government has stressed that the presumption should be at the heart of the planning system, which would be central to the approach taken to both plan making and decision making. And it's all to do with planning authorities, local, etc., etc., etc. Same stuff across the whole world, because that's the sneaky United Nations for you. They always go international. They don't tell you that they've got it next door as well, in neighboring countries. And you have to think it's some just private organization trying to help you locally. That's what you're made to think. And also, I'm going into an article. It's about again, the U.S., and it's another place that kind of dropped the membership. It says supervisors drop ICLEI membership, but renew grant commitment. And that was June the 10th, 2011. It says, from Charlottesville tomorrow. After a lengthy public hearing, a divided Albemarle Board of Supervisors voted late Wednesday to end the county's membership in a non-profit organization that provides software and technical advice to communities seeking to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. The vote came immediately after a unanimous vote to continue the county's participation in a $1 million regional sustainability planning grant being administered by Thomas Jefferson Planning District Commission. The county joined ICLEI, there you go again, in late 2007 after the board adopted a resolution to join the Coup County's initiative to pursue reduction of greenhouse gas emissions in the county as a whole. UCLEI provided software that developed reports tracking progress towards the goal. You know, the special computers the United Nations uses with the IPCC. They're made to always give you bad news. And it says that Supervisor Ken C. Boyd said he wanted to continue to monitor the county's own emissions, but not those of the community as a whole. So they want to tax you individually. And it all goes to the United Nations Communist Party, you know. It says it's not our place as government to dictate our citizens how they should live or not live, Boyd said. Absolutely. And again, they get the same lies here from the head of this one saying that nothing to do with United Nations. Back with more after this break. Hi folks, we're back cutting through the matrix and reading about the ICLEI, this organization at the United Nations who really were spearheading the whole idea towards carbon taxation on a personal level. You can't build outside your heavily dense cluster of the city. All of that, all to do with Agenda 21. And it says here that here's from the guy who runs it, of course, the guy who works for this organization. Again, like the last article I read too, with the usual lies, it's not part of the United Nations, it's not supported by the United Nations, and it's not governed by the United Nations, Rooker said. I bet he rakes in, it should be called Raker. We have a tool that staff says is helpful, is inexpensive, and that cannot be replaced by anything else that's out there, because it's especially made to always give you bad readings and higher readings, you know, that's why. The board voted 4-2 to withdraw membership, with Malik and Rooker voting against. Well, of course, they're voting for their jobs. The software will remain on Albemarle's computers, but the county will not be able to receive technical support or updates. Now, as I say, they all say that we're not nothing to do with the United Nations. You go right into the ICLEI's website, which I'm on right now, and it says, it was conceived in 1989 when 35 local government leaders from Canada, of course in Canada is a big leader for communism, and the USA met with leading atmospheric scientists to discuss the depletion of the ozone layer. It was the ozone layer that time. We're all going to get fried, you know, because of the ozone layer. They pledged to establish local laws to phase out chemicals that deplete the Earth's ozone layer. Remember what they said, and I read them all last week too. They plan to dismantle all factories, all industry in these countries, United States and Canada. That's what the top guys have said. So they'll use any excuse to do it. Larry Agron, mayor of Irvine, California, USA, and John Brugman imagined an agency that could coordinate local government responses to global environmental problems. This is under the auspices of the Center for Innovative Diplomacy. Jeb Brugman consulted with local government officials from more than 20 countries to measure support. The concept was endorsed by the former International Union of Local Authorities, and an agreement was endorsed with the United Nations Environment Programme to host the founding Congress. So it was founded in the United Nations. It tells you on their own website. More than 200 local governments from 43 countries participated in the World Congress on 5 to 9th September 1990 at the United Nations headquarters in New York. The 4-day proceedings concluded with adoption of the Charter and the appointment of an interim executive committee. Sir John Chatfield, who was elected to serve as the first ICLEI chair, and Jeg Brugman as ICLEI's first Secretary General. So they're the only ones who use this terminology, Secretary General. Okay? So they actually started up one of their top offices in Toronto, Canada, as a headquarters, and then they moved it to Germany. So I'll put this link up as well to see how the liars lie. When they're caught red-handed, they continue to lie. What else can they do? They can't tell the truth. They can't do it. And then to cap it off too, now that there's more counties getting aware of what's going on and the big agenda, here's an article here from 22nd of June. President Obama signed his 86th Executive Order 13575 on June the 9th, which established the White House Rural Council. It's another part of it, so they just changed the terminology. According to the Blaze, the executive order seems to be in line with the United Nations Radical Agenda 21, as it is designed to begin taking control over almost all aspects of the lives of 16% of the American people. It's a lot more than that. Evidence of this can be found in Section 1 of the executive order, which reads, policy, 16% of the American population live in rural counties. Strong, sustainable rural communities are essential to winning the future and ensuring American competitiveness in the years ahead. All the lovely stuff, food supply, fiber, energy, safeguard natural resources, etc., etc., etc. But it's part of Agenda 21, signed in by executive order by Obama, who takes $1 from you and gives you a penny back, and he says change is good.